Just got back from a heated argument, so I'm in a mood for a video. Yeah, there's all these free market purists around here, and they have a profoundly strong disliking of whenever I try to push, this idea of abolishing inheritance over a certain limit, regardless of what that limit is. I'll stretch it for them. I could bid the damn thing as high as 100 million per inheritee, and 100 billion per estate, and it still wouldn't be satisfactory. It would still be communism, fascism, Marxism, insert imagined bullshitism. It's just all these Red Scare tactics, which is just amazing. Just amazing that there's no room whatsoever for any sort of negotiating, what at all. And I'd even use the driver's license inheritance analogy just out of morbid curiosity to see what they'll come back with, if anything. Because it's just such a checkmate analogy. Because, hey, if the parent worked really hard to acquire and to retain the license, who the hell is the government to tell the parent who's going to own that license once its initial owner, ceases to be or decides to give it up? No, we gotta let the owner. The owner must be allowed to just give it away to anyone at all, just as long as that anyone is over 16, regardless of whether or not they ever got behind a wheel. I mean, just a bulletproof analogy, just demonstrating how ludicrous it is seeing people chalk this sort of thing up, this sort of rationale up when it comes to extremely large amounts of money. Because the exact same holds true for large amounts of money, which, considering the system we exist in, the wealth breeds wealth, and that wealth goes on to breed more wealth ad infinitum. Couple that with the fact that all these people are offended by the proposal of abolishing interest because they still believe in the idea that borrowing money allows the middle class to thrive. So you combine these two things, interest and inheritance, and this is what you'll get. I mean, we all know by now the numbers in terms of where the working class is and where the upper class is, and most importantly, where the top 1% is. So what gets me is all these people's outrage when it comes to the current state of affairs, when they themselves fight tooth and nail to defend what cannot, just absolutely cannot, create long-term results that are any different than this. Making money bullshit. And, the children of wealthy people being brainwashed, brainwashed is probably too strong a word, but being conditioned from very early on to be comfortable with the notion that they are privileged and just destined to be in positions of power, positions of control, not through work, but through head start. And that's really the catch. So yeah, you have that, and you'll end up with individuals who have little to no regard for the value of labor. Some of which will even go on to have contempt for labor because, labor is for simpletons, and period. And yet these are the people who control us. And most of us are complacent. And, a few of us actually go on to defend it, and an even smaller few of us are outraged by it. But, to those who are in defense of it, I don't know why. Perhaps they do in hopes of one day, taking part in it. But their most common counter-argument that I've run into to the proposal of, and this is how they'll phrase it. They keep referring to it as spreading the wealth, sharing the wealth, implying some sort of a archaic, idealistic, already debunked, Robin Hood-esque mission that anyone who's not a bleeding heart capitalist is on. As if, we're talking about how we want to go up to a bunch of CEOs and just outright take money from their pockets and give it to a bunch of know-nothing lazy slobs. That's not what anyone's arguing for. Except for that equal money system cult, but they don't count. But yeah, some of us are simply arguing for a matching line of productivity and income. Value of people's work being met with being 100 parallel to their income. And I think we can draw these lines. Okay, maybe not with 100% accuracy, but we can sure as hell do better than this, better than they've done. And we keep allowing them to do it. Because if anyone of any integrity looks at the gaps between the workers and the elites right now, a red alert really should go off. There's no productivity an owner or even a CEO can muster up that's going to put him or her like 1,000 miles ahead of the average worker in the company. They should make more, but to argue that anyone needs to make 50 times more or 100 times more just because they're placed in a position where the decisions they make go on to affect thousands of people in the company is just such a twisted piece of logic. It's as if I were to argue that should a CEO ever, should his poor decision making ever result in all the workers losing their jobs, then that means that the onus should also be on the CEO to financially aid all of those who were affected by his inept decision. Doesn't even have to be an inept decision, just choices he made that looked good on paper in the foreseeable future, beyond reasonable doubt. I mean, these business decisions, if they are to be so heavily rewarded when the corporations prosper, wouldn't there also need to be a burden to balance things out when things don't go well? But of course, we can see how this is just excessive in both ways and just short-sighted. So instead of excessively paying decision makers when their ideas result in profits for the business, and couple that with obliging them to excessively pay back when they fail, why not simply engineer a system preventing both extremes? And of course, that brings us to talks of major regulation, and that's not going to work since there's all these people talking deregulation nowadays, with their biggest contention being the myth, and just the outright myth, that if limitations are set in stone in terms of income, all motivation will be lost as far as smart people go. People will be left jobless because the fat cats aren't going to be interested in taking part in a system that's just so ruthlessly restrictive, so long as they have alternative options out there, pure free markets. And it's just so funny to me that they always go this route, because in damn near every other argument they put forth, they keep stressing the beauty and the purity of demand and supply. Yet in this case, when bringing up this example, they are completely ignoring demand and supply, because the fat cat owner closing down his business, so to move on elsewhere, in no way tarnishes the demand itself. So as long as there's enough demand for whatever the fuck product we're talking about here, there will be people satisfied with filling the position left open. So this idea that people aren't going to be motivated on account of not being able to become billionaires or multimillionaires is absolutely bogus. I mean, how many people do you know who would pass on making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year just because there would be this, there would exist this ultimate limit far beyond that, what they would make? No, the only types of workers, and I'll use the term workers loosely, but yeah, the only workers who would lose motivation in all this are some of the owner types who make up a tiny fraction of the overall puzzle and who are replaceable. Yes, owners are replaceable. This is especially those with stranglehold monopolies. I mean, it would just open up everything. And this really shouldn't have to be refuted. This insane argument that only by placating people's grotesque aspirations of gluttony can we truly motivate them to work hard. At least, the smart people to work hard. As if working to simply put food on the table and to live comfortably and survive is not a big enough motivation for the majority of the population in any given country. But like I said, to those few who will lose motivation because they're so egomaniacal to the point where making thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars a year is not enough, and they have to make millions or billions, well then, goodbye. We don't need them. We've never really needed them at all. And there's a reason that we were brought up to believe that we did, but we don't. There is such a thing as an extremely skilled, highly intelligent, non-extravagant worker who can get the job done just as well as the extremely intelligent, extravagant worker can, if not better. Because there are smart people who are realistic enough to realize that they're not better than 1,000 human beings, and the fact that they may have had some sort of an idea that jump-started the entire business is not better than 1,000 human beings putting in 8 hours a day, 7 days a week. And it shouldn't be compensated as if it's that much better. And it's just that simple. It really is. And you know, and CEOs aren't even that fucking brilliant to begin with, on top of all this. I mean, you let me shadow a CEO for a few weeks or a month or two, and I'll do that shit blindfolded. So yeah, out of time, probably. But yeah, I mean, I'm already a half decent golfer as it is, so I got probably half of it covered.